right, here we are at the last video in this 14-part series. Now in this series, we have gone through my assessment framework, which is the basic outline of this course that I've built called Finding the Perfect Homestead Property. We've talked about it a lot in these videos. And today we arrive at the last piece of this framework. And just to remind you, in this framework, we had 13 pieces. The first video was sort of an introduction to this series, and each video, or the next video after that, talked about your context, and from that we derived your non-negotiables and negotiables on the things that you would look for in a property, things that you want, things that you don't want, and that sets the foundation for your entire search. And after that, we discussed finding threats and identifying them so that you can eliminate most of the properties you look at right out of the gate, because that's essentially what you want to do. If you want to find the best place and the right place for you, you want to look at the most amount in the least amount of time and disqualify a huge amount of them right out of the gate. And then from there, we've gone through our 11 scales of permanence, starting with climate, geography, water, socioeconomics, access and circulation, etc., etc. And today we are going to discuss aesthetics and experience, which you can probably make the case is the least important. At least it's probably the easiest thing to change. And that's one thing that is true with the scales of permanence, especially the way that P.A. Yeoman originally implied with them, is that when you start at climate, the climate is the thing that is the most difficult to change and the most difficult to avoid, if you will. And then as we've gone through all of these scales of permanence, we've gotten down where they get easier to change as we get to the bottom. And aesthetics and experience is the last one. But it is important, because how a property looks and feels and how you experience that property is really important to you. Because if you want to live there and spend time there, you want it to be a certain way. And all of these things are in a way somewhat subjective, in that you might value some over others. And I know in the case of my property here, that was the case. I really valued privacy and security, and I was willing to compromise on some things in my scales of permanence to get that. So I was willing to compromise and put work into my geography, put work into my soil and water to get all the things that I wanted here on this property. But the aesthetics and the experience of a property is super important, because either you can make it or you already have something there you can start with. And again, you can change that easier than most of the others. There's no question about it. But there's some things, when it comes to aesthetics and experience, you can look at the microcosm, the property itself. You can pull the lens back and look at the aesthetics of the neighborhood or the area that you're in. Like, what do your neighbors' properties look like? You know, in British Columbia here, we have a lot of areas that are really kind of dumpy looking in the rural areas. You drive through some places like Beaverdale, British Columbia, for example, has a lot of just dumpy cars and garbage in properties, and that's not nice. I don't want to live in that kind of scenario. Whereas you can go to some parts of Quebec in Canada, Eastern Townships come to mind in particular, where you have beautiful homesteads where people put a significant amount of pride and hard work into their homesteads. And so all these things can vary, but whatever you start with sets your standard of, I guess, what you have to do afterwards. And when it comes to the aesthetics of a property, I mean, right now, mine looks a little dumpy because winter came on so quickly last fall that we didn't have time to put a lot of things away. And as our snow has melted, and it's almost completely melted now, really the only place that we have snow at this point are some of the low areas that get a lot of shade, or the areas in the forest. But for the most part, my property is open, and isn't this neat to notice how my neighbor's property over there, He's on the north side of a mountain. He's still got 2 feet of snow. Pretty neat. But this is something that you can change, and you can change fairly easily, doing some nice landscaping, something that we've been working on a lot, doing landscaping with rocks and things like this on the property, building up our terraces with big rocks. We're actually blessed. The rocks on this property are sort of our biggest curse and our biggest blessing at the same time. They've been a curse in that they make it very challenging for us to shape the ground. And when it came to putting in our home site here, our home is bermed into the hillside. And we had I believe it was a 40-ton machine in here with a 16,000-pound hammer that jacked away this to get our home site in. And we're just about to get back into construction now. We've got some cleanup to do and some prep. We've got to fill the cavity up or fill up the foundation with more sand here and pack it down. But the rock was a curse and a blessing even in this case. But the thing that's been a real blessing about it is that I get all this rock and I can use this stuff for all kinds of things. And so that's going to have in the long run, a really nice aesthetic appeal. And it's going to make the overall experience of this property really nice. And it's something that I really love about the place that we're in. And of course, all these things have pros and cons. They have upsides and downsides. You know, you just have to be able to see those opportunities and decide if it's a worthwhile investment or a place that you want to put resources into. And that's what all of these scales of permanence represent. Remember that just because one property might fail in one aspect doesn't mean that it fails overall. And it just represents what kind of resources you're going to put into it. And as we've been going through these and how I've always used the scales of permanence to evaluate properties, that's what we're measuring. Ultimately, it's up to you to decide if you like the property or not. And you should always trust your gut, and that should be the thing that really guides you the most. But when it comes down to picking, say you've looked at a number of different properties and you've eliminated your search down to 5 places, and they're all fairly good, what you need to decide then is which one do you want to pick based on your expected resources that you're going to have to put into developing that property. Because at the end of the day, it all just comes down to the amount of effort and resources you're going to put into it to make it what you want. And that's ultimately the most important thing. That's why in this evaluation process, this framework that we use that as our guiding principle. Because you might have a property that, say, is an A property, is in this course, we sort things as A, B, or C properties based on their point score. So somewhere between 0 to 22.5 is an A, 22.5 to 40 is a B, and 40 and beyond is a C, something like that. And all that represents is how many resources you're going to put into it. And so when you've got a handful that you're really, trying to pick and choose, you're saying to yourself, well, I like this property for this reason and this reason and this reason. However, I'm going to have to change the geography a lot. I'm going to have to find a better source of water or whatever it's going to be. That could be the thing that really makes the decision for you, is do you want to spend this many resources on this thing or this thing? And that's what it comes down to. So this process and this course too that we've put together is called Finding the Perfect Homestead Property, and originally the intention of it was for just people who are looking for property. But as I've explored this content with people, I've done a number of podcasts that you may have seen with friends and colleagues over the last number of weeks. And one thing that I've kind of realized is that the information is actually valuable to more people than just people that want to find homestead properties. Knowing how to read geography and how to analyze the landscape has quite a huge application, not to just people looking to find a place to live and homestead on, but also even if you're a farmer and you're thinking about ways that you can change your property, or ways that you can better it, or perhaps avoid certain situations. It could also help a lot for people who want to help others and consult on their property. It's a great place to start. And I've been talking about farming for so many years now, but when it comes to the land itself, in a way, that discussion is a little bit more universally applicable, because if you can read the landscape, that is first the thing, even before you discuss what's going to happen on that land. But if you can understand that landscape, then you can apply that in a variety of different types of scenarios depending on what's going to be happening on that land. So yeah, this is the last one in the series, and I hope you guys have found this content very helpful. And just to remind you that the early bird discount for the course becomes available on the 15th, and it will close at midnight on the 17th. And so the cutoff is April 18th. So if you get on our waiting list, head over to homestead.freedomfarmers.com. There'll be a link in the show notes. There'll be a link in the video. Get in there and sign up. And what we're going to do on the official launch date, the 18th, I'm going to have a live stream in the morning, and we're going to be drawing names out of a hat. So I'm going to pick 5 names out of a hat for people to get a free 1-hour consult with me. And we can talk about whatever you want. We can look at your property. We can pull up Google Earth. We can talk about farming. We can talk about your business on your farm. Whatever you want to throw past me, we can just shoot the breeze too. It's up to you. And another thing we're going to do in this live stream is we're going to give you guys who sign up for the course an opportunity. So here's an added bonus. We're going to give you the opportunity to throw addresses at me. So anybody who signed up for the course, you're going to get an email and thanking you for signing up, and you'll have an opportunity to put your information and property into a list. And I'll kind of just pick them at random, and during that live stream, we'll analyze these properties. So we'll pick the winners for the consult, but then I'll also just riff on the different types of properties. Of course, you're going to have to want to share that, but we don't have to share who you are per se. If you want to be somewhat anonymous, we can look at a property and not essentially dox you and say, oh, so and so lives here. We can keep that private if you choose. But that's what we'll be doing in the live stream. So I'll be drawing names out of a hat for the consult winners, and we'll be analyzing some properties in a way that I do in the course. So we'll look at some properties. You guys send me some addresses, and this will be just for people who sign up. And again, you'll get that in an email. But we will we'll do some real-time property reviews, and we'll go through the analysis process, kind of share with you what it looks like in the course and what you can get excited to see. So yeah, folks, that's it for this one. And just circling back briefly to the aesthetics and experience of a place, it's probably the simplest one to understand, because we all kind of understand in a way what we like and what we don't like, what we like to see or not to see. And this one is fairly simple. There's not really that much to it. And it's very subjective too, because it all just depends on what you like and how you want a place to look. So that's it for this series, folks. The next time you'll see me will be on the live stream on the 18th. And let's do it at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on the 18th. I believe that's a Tuesday. And get on the waiting list. And if you are interested in having me review your property in this live stream, make sure that you respond to the email that we send you, and send us your address, and we'll review it in real time. All right, folks. We'll see you on the 18th. Take care.